what's up? Welcome back. Walking and Talking, episode 34. We're here in La Tourette Park on Staten Island. I'm about to go see John Wick 3, and I figured since it's Friday and John Wick heavily features bourbon whiskey, today is a perfect day to talk about my favorite bourbons. So, this list is not just going to be an order of my favorites based on taste and nose. It's going to be based on taste, nose, affordability, and availability. Because if you can't get it or you can't afford it, what's the purpose of putting it on this list? Because then it's just unreachable for the most part. So, with that said, let's start with my fifth favorite bourbon, Blantons. Featured in John Wick, this bourbon is what many would consider a legendary bourbon. It is everything that is good about a bourbon. It is that quintessential sitting on a porch in the South on a farm in a rocking chair, glass of bourbon, big ice cube inside of it, just sitting and sipping and relaxing. That is everything that Blantons is. It is smooth, it is strong, it is complex, it has that cherry, sweet vanilla and brown sugar. It is a great bourbon, and on top of that, it has the character and the specialness that a bourbon on this list should have, which is why it is here. But the downside is, while it is available in a lot of places, it is a little expensive. Most of the time I see it around 70 bucks, which is a bit much for bourbon, but I don't think that disqualifies it. But Blanton's number 5. Number 4, this is probably my favorite bourbon as far as taste and nose goes. George T. Nope, not close. That's his big brother. This is Stagg Jr. Stagg Jr. is basically the more affordable, more available little cousin to George T. Stagg. Made by the Buffalo Trace Distilling Company, Stagg Jr. is everything that high proof bourbon should be. It is complex, it is a little aggressive, but at the same time, it adds a lot of character and a lot of specialness to the whiskey. It is amazing. It is my favorite bourbon. It's one of my favorite whiskeys of all time. But the downside is that it is not only expensive when you can find a bottle, it's hard to find. Availability for Stagg Jr. is a bit rough. I find them occasionally. When I do find them, I see them for about 50, 60 bucks at retail. The secondary market prices it up accordingly. Those I see closer to, I've even seen some in the low hundreds, which I think is a lot for that whiskey. But it is my favorite. That's why it's number 4. Yeah, what can I say? It's delicious. Number 3. We are talking about W.L. Weller. Once again, we're talking about a Buffalo Trace product. This time, it is part of their Weller line, which is very similar to the Pappy line. So all you bourbon aficionados, you know Pappy Van Winkle. And even people who don't know bourbon, a lot of you know Pappy Van Winkle as being that insanely hard to find, extremely expensive bourbon that everybody gushes about. Well, it is a wheated bourbon from the Buffalo Trace Distillery. Technically also the Pappy Van Winkle / W.L. Weller, all those brands are underneath it. Sorry for getting off track there. But it is a wheated bourbon, so it's very similar to Pappy Van Winkle, but it doesn't carry the same cost. While I do like the 107 Antique Weller and the Weller 12 a lot, maybe possibly more, neither of those is as available, and both of those are more expensive than the Weller Special Reserve, and I don't think the price difference is enough to make it the recommendation for me. So, number 3, Weller Special Reserve, wheated bourbon, which adds a little bit of extra character and flavor to it, because bourbon, one of its defining characteristics is 51% corn. So a lot of the bourbons tend to pick up this dusty corn note, and the wheated bourbons tend to mellow that out a little bit and add this extra little element to it. Similar to how like a rye heavy bourbon is very different from a standard bourbon. So with that, next on my list is gonna be Four Roses Single Barrel. And at between $30 and $40, I don't think you can find a better, I don't even think you can find a single barrel whiskey. Four Roses Single Barrel is not only delicious, not only special, it is high proof, high character, high flavor, high nose. Everything about it is magnificent. It is probably number 2, seconded only to that Stagg Junior as far as my favorite bourbons. And I mean, I can't say enough of it. I've had 2 bottles. I'm on my 2nd bottle currently, which is saying something, that I finished the 1st bottle. It is the bourbon I go to when I want a glass of whiskey. It's great neat, holds up really well on the rocks. It's great in a cocktail. It's available almost everywhere. I had a glass of Four Roses Single Barrel neat while sitting at a cafe in Paris with my wife, if that's any indication to how available Four Roses Single Barrel is. Yeah, highly recommend. If you've never had Four Roses Single Barrel, go find a bottle. It's worth your while. It's not hard to find either, which is perfect. And it's why it is number 2 on this list, unquestionably. And number 1, I think one of the best bourbons for the money. I think a great bourbon in general. All the classic notes, vanilla, cherry, not too sweet, not too aggressive. Just everything is balanced. And that comes from Buffalo Trace. Its signatory whiskey is incredible. And it's not just incredible for its price point, which its price point is very good. Usually you can find a bottle for in the 20s. It's available everywhere, so it ticks that box in spades. And the quality is just, I don't know that I can find a better bourbon quality-wise at that price point, or even $10 or $15 more than that. If you want a great bourbon to share with friends, sit back, relax, or you're going out, say like you're going on a camping trip and you're gonna go have a barbecue, whatever, Buffalo Trace is one of the best bourbons you can buy to share with friends and enjoy and not have to feel like you're spending a fortune. I don't know that I'm explaining that really well, but either way, Buffalo Trace is number 1. It's my favorite bourbon on this list, as this list stands, with value and all that mixed in. It is also considered one of like that kind of the bourbon drinkers bourbon. Bourbon drinkers know what it is, and they really man, I feel like I'm getting really rambly here. Honorable mention, I am going to throw out to Bullet Bourbon. Bullet Bourbon is great bourbon, not crazy expensive, available pretty much anywhere, and it is a little bit stronger. It is I want to say it's like 95 proof, which is roughly like 45% alcohol. It's a little bit stronger. It does hold up very well to being on the rocks or in cocktails. So if you're making a whiskey forward cocktail, sometimes you may want to consider Bullet, which is why it's going to be an honorable mention. But yeah, with that, thank you all for joining me. I'm going to do a quick drone flight, then run to see my movie. I will talk to you all on Monday. Peace. Bye.